everybody. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Hey, Kimberly. Hello, Stephanie. Hey, pretty brown eyes. Hello, Trissy. I don't know why I got ready to call you Teresa. I don't know why. Hello, Trissy. Good evening, guys. I wanted to come back because I just realized that I had not finished the transcript reading for Boosie's bond hearing, and I wanted to finish it off. I know I was on page 8 when Boosie just was saying to the judge, "Your Honor," and then his attorney told him, "Wait," So we're gonna go ahead on and finish, so you guys will know exactly what happened to Mr. Boosie on during the bond hearing. Oh, also, um, the 13th of October, he is due back in court for his status hearing. So you guys would get a chance to hear what happened in that. As you know, we will be covering it in its entirety. Hey, Cynthia, how are you? Hello. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead on and get started. Hey, Miss Fat. Free Boo Pack. Ah, that's a new name, Boo Pack. Okay, let's go ahead on and bring this up to you guys. Here we go. Here we go. You guys get to see this right here. Let me bring it up on the side. Hold on. Okay, there we go. All right, I want to get to see your notes and stuff. Okay. All right, here we go. We're at number 7. No, number 8. Number 8. Okay. All right, Mr. Callahan says, we provided this court as well as the defense counsel. The same video clip continues to being played. In fact, Your Honor, as shown in Exhibit 3, which was provided to the court as well to the defense counsel, the black Glock 19 pistol was found on the seat between Mr. Hatch and his security guard. Hold on a second. Let me go back. Hold on. I think I forgot to put on something. Yeah. Hold on. Okay. I need to go back up here for a second. Oh, let me put on my music because Kim just sold a Cash App. Thank you, Kim. Money, so much money. Kim, you know the haters gonna be so mad. They're gonna be upset. Gonna be so mad out here because we're doing the money thing. Okay, we're gonna go to let's start where Miss Blanco told him wait. Boosie says to the Honor, Your Honor. And she says, his attorney says, wait. Sir, this is the judge. Sir, I don't want you to speak to me, okay? I want your lawyer to speak with me, okay? Then there's a pause, and the video gets played. Miss Callahan says, that's what they do. They take the charge for the pistol. Those are Mr. Hatch's own words. Mr. Hatch says, I think they're talking about me. The judge is getting upset. He says, no, sir. Please don't address anyone in the court, okay? Your lawyer will have to your lawyer will have a chance to argue, okay? Go ahead. Mr. Callahan says, thank you, Your Honor. Next, defendant's statement in custody shows that his plan was to lay the blame at the hand of someone else for the firearm. This time, it's his security guard. During the next clip, Your Honor, you'll see a highly emotional Mr. Hatch repeatedly attempting to shift the blame to his security guard. Again, we provided this. A video clip is being played. We provided this to the court as well as to the defense. The same video clip is continuing being played. In fact, Your Honor, as shown in Exhibit 3, we provided to the court as well as the defense counsel the black Glock 19 pistol was found in the seat between Mr. Hatch and his security. Then, as the court just saw, after a still image of the Instagram live video was shown to Mr. Hatch, that's in Exhibit 4. He admitted that he put the gun on for the video. Defendant also admitted that this gun, the seized guns, were flown in from Atlanta. Your Honor, the United States is also extremely concerned about witness intimidation here. After he was interviewed by detectives, defendant was observed yelling and berating his security guard. Defendant screamed at his security, asking why he told the police the gun was on the seat. At one point after his interview with the defendants, officer heard Mr. Hatch threatening his security guard for not taking responsibility for the guns. An officer overheard the defendant tell security guard that I quote, "You're going to be in a body bag." Mr. Hatch also said something to his security guard along the line of, "I got 10 on your head," or "I got 10K on you." This isn't an accident or happenstance crime. Mr. Hatch intentionally corroborated the transportation of firearms into the Southern District of California, then brought those firearms into the Lincoln Park neighborhood. Mr. Hatch knows that he's prohibited from possessing or owning any firearms, but he tried to circumvent this with a well thought out plan. He followed the playbook that he laid out in the first clip that we played in the court. And when Mr. Hatch realized that his plan had gone awry, he took additional steps to threaten and intimidate a witness. Mr. Hatch is both a danger to the community and a serious risk of flight. This is an individual with an estimated net worth of nearly $6 million. He has significant funds to flee. It appears that he works off the books and gets paid cash for his appearance. He was found with approximately $16,000 on him during his arrest. Defendant doesn't appear to have any community ties to San Diego. Given the significant custodial sentence that he'll face, defendant prior criminal history, his history of weapons use and drug use, and witness threats, intimidation concerns, we request Mr. Hatch be detained. Judge says, I have some question for Mr. Callahan. First, you were able to, is there any other criminal history and conviction following his, not including the minor infraction as a juvenile. There were there any there actually a conviction other than the ones I have listed in the complaint in 2011, and in 2011, Mr. Callahan said, just those two in the complaint, Your Honor. Then it just says, okay. Then there were the firearm registration. If so, who were they registered to? Then Mr. Callahan says, the firearms were registered. Yes, Your Honor. They were registered to an individual, Miss Nelson, I believe. The judge says, okay. Miss Blanco, I'll hear from you. Miss Blanco says, thank you very much. As an additional matter, the government has failed to show a single reason supporting their conclusion of their argument that Mr. Hatch is a flight risk. So I'll address that first. While it is true that Mr. Hatch has very few ties to Southern District of California, that is because Mr. Hatch is a performer. He does not live here. In fact, this is his second time in San Diego. He flew out for a performance that he was paid for, and then following that, agreed to shoot a music video as part of his work obligations. These are all gigs that were set up by his manager. He, however, has extensive tie to the community to which he lives and is not a flight risk. Your Honor, can see in the courtroom today, Mr. Hatch has extensive community support. When I say community support, I mean support across the country. Because Mr. Hatch's arrest is in this case has impacted many young individuals around the country who views the government's action in this case as a form of racism. Mr. Hatch came here. He was arrested for gun possession. He was charged in the state. He was bonded out immediately by the state. He made every single appearance in the state court hearing. And then when Mr. Hatch was ready to plead guilty in that case pursuant to a bench offer, the judicial officer who knew Mr. Hatch's history, who knew Mr. Hatch's personal characteristics, who knew all of the good work that Mr. Hatch has done and continues to do in the community, determined that the appropriate sentence for this exact crime that the federal government has decided to roll up federally, that the appropriate sentence in that case would have been probation. Mr. Hatch is ready to fly back and continue the work that he has been doing as well over a decade. He is not a flight risk. Your Honor, Mr. Hatch is a single father. He lives with 3 minor children, two of whom he takes to school Monday through Thursday. Monday through Thursday, Mr. Hatch does not generally schedule work appearance. The reason he doesn't is because he is a doting father to his young children. This is evidence to Mr. Hatch's good work with his children by the fact that he has 2 adult children who are currently attending college. He supports all of them. In addition, Mr. Hatch's manager has sent to me a number of community events that Mr. Hatch has participated in on a pro bono basis going back years. These are all matters that were presented to the state court, and the state court determined that a probationary sentence was appropriate. These include things like food drives. They included things like raising money for scholarship for students, disadvantaged students who are attending historically Black colleges in the South. The list goes on, Your Honor. Mr. Hatch's mother is present in the court today. She is willing to sign a surety for him. The probation department found that Mr. Hatch should be released on a $30,000 bond. We've submitted on that with one minor modification. Going to the thrust of the government's argument that Mr. Hatch is a danger to the community, there's nothing that shows that. As Your Honor just questioned the government, Mr. Hatch has two prior convictions. Both of them are distant in time and related to marijuana possession. In one case, distribution of marijuana. In California, Mr. Hatch would have been sentenced, if at all, to a misdemeanor for those convictions. He has no conviction of violence whatsoever. None. Marijuana, that is his prior conviction. In addition, Mr. Hatch lives a very public life where he is followed at all times by both paparazzi as well as people who publish about really his very move. Who published about really his very move? I don't know what the lady wrote in here. Now, with request to the very first video that the government played for Your Honor. First, I'll submit that it is not relevant to these proceedings, as it does not go to the two questions before the court. Those questions, of course, being both flight and danger. But Mr. Hatch is a public figure. He is known for saying outlandish things intentionally on videos, on things like the YouTube videos that was displayed for Your Honor. It is not reflective of how Mr. Hatch is as an individual. He is a performer. He puts on a performance when he is in public. The gun at issue, as the government indicates, that is the least significant factor that Mr. Hatch is in fact possess the gun. But I want to note a few important things about how this investigation played out. Mr. Hatch, Your Honor, was present in the Southern District for work. A local officer found out that Mr. Hatch was here via someone else's YouTube posting. In response to that, for a felon in possession case, this officer deployed a helicopter to follow Mr. Hatch around. This is a felony in possession case that was going to be disposed of for probation. This is not a typical response that you would get to a normal person who's being charged with a felon in possession. Yes, Mr. Hatch has been targeted because he is a successful, outspoken Black man who, as the government noted, has funds and has resources, something that I imagine the local officers investigating this case was not accustomed to seeing. His response was crazy. Mr. Hatch was pulled over by over 14 investigators, 14, for a felony in possession case. When he was stopped, he was being driven by a paid driver who is paid through his management company. The person that the government claims Mr. Hatch was sitting next to at the time of his stop was Mr. Hatch's paid security guard. Again, paid by his management company to provide security for Mr. Hatch while he was in San Diego. This person, not Mr. Hatch, but this person is the one who brought the guns from Georgia. This is the person who declared, the government failed to mention this, declared those guns on STA form when he checked them into the airport, flew them across country, and acting in his capacity as a security guard, Mr. Hatch checked them out and then, for the most part, carried them on him. Now, the notion that Mr. Hatch can, on the one hand, make an admission to possession of guns, and then, on the other hand, make threats regarding that possession makes little sense. And I would note, because I think this is significant, that all of the government's interaction with Mr. Hatch on May 6th were recorded, with the very distinct exception of these alleged threats that the government is relying upon right now. But Mr. Hatch, I submit, did not make that threat. If he had, it would have been documented on body-worn camera. We've got hours of it. This is not present anywhere. It would have been documented on one of the security videos that was utilized to record Mr. Hatch, really from the moment that he was taken into custody until he was released. It does not appear on any of those videos. I don't believe, Your Honor, should give that any weight. But to the extent Your Honor is inclined to, there are certain limitations that can be put on Mr. Hatch to prevent him from communicating with others. That is something that we seem common in this district, and sometimes that Mr. Hatch would submit. What we are proposing, Your Honor, is a $30,000 bond, as the pretrial services department suggested. We would like a modification, though. Mr. Hatch has a number of upcoming paid performances that will require him to travel. I can quickly go over some of those. Mr. Hatch has, well, actually, if I may take a step back, we appeared for a detention hearing last Thursday. At the time, the government sought a continuation of the detention hearing for the stated reason, which I have not yet seen yet, for the stated reason that they were in possession of newly obtained evidence, which somehow went to either flight or danger for Mr. Hatch. They knew at the time that they sought that continuance, that it was a 3-day weekend celebrating a historical Black holiday. This is what Mr. Hatch missed during the 3-day weekend. That 3-day Juneteenth weekend, Mr. Hatch was scheduled to appear in New Orleans for a Juneteenth celebration. 2 events there. He was supposed to appear at a pay-per-view walkout following that. These are all 3 events on June 17th that he missed because the government claimed the court and indicted to the court as officers of the court that they could not proceed on Thursday. Those events would have paid Mr. Hatch on June 17 $90,000. He had to miss them. Following that, on June 18, Mr. Hatch had a number of appearances before historically black colleges and historically black fraternities in the South celebrating Juneteenth holiday. He missed all of these, Your Honor. He has a number of upcoming events, including the Black Entertainment Weekend in Louisiana, an Oklahoma City 4th of July celebration, an event in Jacksonville, Florida, an after party following that, an event in Alabama, Savannah, Georgia, Houston, Texas, Memphis, Tennessee, Little Rock, Arkansas, Dayton, Ohio, Tempe, Arizona, Orlando, Florida, and New Mexico. In addition to all of that, Mr. Hatch has a tour scheduled between September 1st and November 4th. And then beyond all of that, Mr. Hatch has a number of unpaid appearances that he's scheduled to make for members of the community, his own community where he grew up. He is an icon in the hip hop community. He stands for individuals who are underprivileged, who grew up with the same background that he did. When kids can't afford cancer treatment, it is Mr. Hatch who steps in to pay for it. When kids can't afford college tuition, it is Mr. Hatch who steps in and pays for college for a number of kids. He receives awards and honor for community members, including politicians in the South, including mayors of where he lives. He is not, Your Honor, a flight risk. He is a person who has every incentive to stick around, to come to his appearances, just like he did in state court and identical charges. He has every incentive to do the right thing going forward with respect to this case. Now, whether Mr. Hatch possesses a gun is irrelevant to the question of whether he is a flight risk or a danger. He should be released on bond. It is outrageous that the government decided to sneak into the day that he has going to enter a plea for probation, pull him in federally, detain him, and then announce an inability to move forward with their detention hearing, knowing what he had scheduled for the following weekend. Your Honor, we're asking for a $30,000 bond. He has numerous security who are willing to put up the bond. If Your Honor wants a different amount, we can meet that amount. And we're asking for the ability with advance notice to pretrial services that Mr. Hatch be allowed to travel within the United States for the purpose of fulfilling his I can't even say it, contractual obligation, some of which I have read into the records. The court. Okay, Mr. Callahan, what has the additional evidence that caused the need for a continuance? Your Honor, the clip from the podcast, oh my God. You mean to tell me he didn't give him bond the first time because the clip from a podcast? Really, dude? Really, that is your evidence? Okay, let's finish reading. Oh my God. A clip, y'all. A clip from a podcast. This is crazy. This is crazy. Okay, it says a clip from the podcast that was released in full on Friday. So a day after the detention hearing, as well as those threats that were related to the court that happened over this weekend and just yesterday. The judge said, where are you alleging the threats happened. I guess I was confused about that. What? Mr. Callahan says. The threats after his interview, after the post Miranda interview with the detective at the police department. The judge says, no. When do you allege that happened? Did it happen when he was in custody of the police, or did it happen just last weekend or last week? When he was still in custody of the police. We found out about these threats yesterday. Really, dude? Miss Blanco, this security guard, was he charged at all? Miss Blanco said, no, he was not, Your Honor. And the judge said, okay. He is a regular security guard who continues to be employed by Mr. Hatch, agent. And Ms. Blanco said, yes, Your Honor, that is my understanding. He is a licensed security guard who is still employed by the agency that Mr. Hatch works for. And then the judge says, okay. Then she says, and I would note that the video was not released that Friday. In fact, the copy that was produced to us has never been. It was released prior to Thursday's detention hearing. If you look on YouTube for that video, it was posted on a day or two before the detention hearing. May 6th information has been known to everyone since May 6th. This is according to the government, not me. Then Mr. Callahan says, Your Honor, I believe there were clips of that whole podcast episode that were released on Friday. There were clips of that which included the clip that we played for the court. The threats were received, or excuse me, the threats were the conversation with the law enforcement. We learned about those, the full extent of those yesterday. Y'all, do you believe they stopped the man from doing his concert with this bull? The judge says, okay, all right, Ms. Blanco. And then Mr. Gallen said, and I'm sorry, Your Honor, as to Mr. Johnson, I don't believe he is licensed to carry in California. The court says, that's his security guard? Callahan said, correct. And then he says, what is his full name? And he says his full name is, I don't have his first name, Your Honor. Off the top of my head, it's Mr. Johnson. Really, dude? I can get that for you in just a second, though. And the judge says, okay, all right, Miss Blanco, how much was the state court bond was set for? $30,000, Your Honor. And the judge said, okay. And I would note that there have been no more violation from Mr. Hatch regarding an offer of probationary sentence by the court in that case. Then he says, okay. And now he was arrested on May 6th. And when was he bonded out? That day, Your Honor. And the judge says, and the guy said, and Your Honor, the full name of the security guy is Billy Ray Johnson. And the judge says, Billy Ray? Okay. I'm Mr. Callahan. I'm inclined to set bail. How does the government have an amount or any particular type of parameter that would like to see? And now Mr. Callahan, Your Honor, he says, I'll hear you on that. As a condition, we request that he be drug tested 8 times a month and pretrial specifically be instructed to inform us any failed tests because of his use of marijuana. And the judge says, okay. We'd request also $100,000. Oh my God. $100,000 bond secured by 2 financial responsible adults. There's a pause. And she says, Your Honor, on that last issue, I would ask if the total amount is $100,000 secured by resources, not Mr. Hatch's. And we have 2 financial responsible adults that posted a $50,000 bond While Mr. Hatch certainly has resources, his family does not. His mother is a retired principal. And the court says, by the way, I don't know where his mother is, but thank you for being here. Is there what amount about the cash or or I'm sorry, or corporate surety? And Ms. Blanco said, we can do that, Your Honor. And the judge says, does the government have a problem with that? And then Mr. Callahan says, no, Your Honor. And then the court says, okay, all right, give me a minute and think it through. Mr. Callahan said, as long as they meet the condition of the bond, Your Honor, we're fine. Ms. Blanco says, just for the record, I'd like to point out that it is in fact the case, which I disputed completely because I don't know the video's history. But if it is in fact the case that the video was released on Friday, I don't know what information the government could have possibly been relying upon to ask for continuance that day before. Mr. Callahan says, Your Honor, we were continuing to interview witnesses. Lord Jesus. The court said, that's fine. Let me focus on this. Let's see. And Ms. Blanco says, and Your Honor, may we approach Mr. Hatch? It appears that he has some question. The court said, yeah, you can talk to him. And the judge says, okay, all right, Mr. Hatch, I'm going to enter a pretrial release order for you. It's 2 pages. It's in writing. It's your responsibility to make sure you read it so that you understand it. And you have to sign an advice of penalty and sanction form conforming that you've complied with all the condition of the bail. I'm going to go over those conditions with you right now. I am going to state before I do that, I'm denying the government's motion to detain. Good job, Judge. I think the government's evidence that was presented today really goes to the issue of whether or not he can be convicted of a crime as charged and not whether or not he is a flight risk. I do recognize that there are statements alleged by the government with respect to the witness, the security guard. I think I can address any concerns about that in pretrial release order. I'd also state that it is important to the court that Mr. Hatch was on state bond and complied with his condition of release and appeared in court, made his appearance in court. And I do note that he does have a criminal history. His past convictions are dated. It does appear that he has 1 misdemeanor conviction, and the most recent one was in 2019. That's for a possession of marijuana. I didn't think that presented a danger to the community or a risk of flight. So, Mr. Hatch, the condition includes that you cannot violate federal, state, or local law. You have to cooperate with collection of a DNA sample. You have to appear in court as ordered or surrender as directed. You cannot possess or attempt to possess a firearm, destructive device, or any dangerous weapon. If you own any firearms, you have to legally transfer them as directed by pretrial services. You cannot use or possess narcotic drugs or any other controlled substance without a lawful medication prescription. You cannot use or possess marijuana at all. It's still illegal under federal law. If you're in a state where it continues to be illegal, but that would also be a violation of pretrial release. You have to be supervised by pretrial release. Your travel is restricted. You cannot enter Mexico. You can travel throughout the United States for work, but you cannot go anywhere international. You have to execute any appearance bond in the amount of $50,000 that is secured by your signature, and a cash bond or a bail bond by approved sovereign corporate surety. The corporate bond bail bond must cover all condition of release, not just appearance. You have to actively seek or continue full-time employment or schooling or both. You have to reside with a family member surety or a residence approved by a pretrial. You have to surrender any valid passport and cannot obtain any other passport or international travel document. You have to clear all warrants or failure to appear and pay all fines within 90 days of release as directed by pretrial services. You have to avoid all contact, direct or indirectly, with any person who is or may be a victim or witness in the investigation or prosecution, including the security guard Billy Ray Johnson. You have to participate in a location monitoring program and comply with this requirement as directed. I'm going to check the curfew box, which means you're restricted to your residence as directed by pretrial services or your supervising officer. I have stated on the side that you're allowed to perform and travel to or from your performance with advance notice to pretrial services. You have to communicate your pretrial service with pretrial services to make sure that they understand that your travel schedule is and what your performance schedule is. The technology with the technology will be with pretrial services discretion. It could be GPS, smart link, or voice recognition. Defense counsel must notify pretrial services upon submission of a bond paperwork. You will be released from custody to pretrial the next business day by 10 a.m. for installation of location monitoring program equipment. I did review the pretrial service recommendation, and I am not going to impose drug testing at this time. It does not mean that you can go do anything that's against the law. If you post any picture of you using marijuana or any illegal substance, anyone else posting it to social media anywhere, that is going to be evidence of violation of your bail condition. You have to be brought back, and I will just know that. Okay. Anything else from pretrial services? Sergeant Officer St. James. Good morning, Your Honor. Greg St. James, PH, pretrial services. Nothing further. The judge says, okay, all right. Anything else from the attorney? Ms. Blanco says, no, Your Honor, thank you. Mr. Callahan says, Your Honor, we ask that the court stay the release order for 48 hours so we can seek an appeal. And the judge said, I'm not going to do that. You can seek review immediately if you need it. Then he says, thank you, Your Honor. And the court says, this is your order to appear again, Mr. Hatch, on there is any request for continuance of the preliminary hearing. Ms. Blanco said, no, Your Honor. The court says, you're ordered to appear again on June 29th at 9:30 a.m. For preliminary hearing, and July 11th at 9:30 for an arraignment, but that will be it for today. Good luck. Ms. Blanco said, thank you very much, Your Honor. Mr. Callahan said, thank you, Your Honor. And then the judge said, you're welcome. And then that was it. So they was really trying to get him. He was trying to keep him. He had no reason to keep him. He could have let him go that day, y'all. They could have let him go. They were talking about they were reviewing some freaking video that was released on that Friday, and then he goes and lies and say he wanted to get some witnesses, and y'all heard that. It was a lot of shenanigans, y'all. All right, good people. I love you guys. You guys have a great night. I gotta go to bed because I have to be in court tomorrow. You guys, thank you for my Cash App for Miss Kimmy Kim. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, I gotta go. Good night, good people. Love y'all. See y'all. Bye.